Hi friends, and welcome to this session on fractions, percentages and ratio and proportion. These are few very elementary topics in our arithmetic which comes under our basic numeracy, but there are invariably one or two questions from these topics, or usually these topics are used to build topics like averages, profit and loss, and compound interest and simple interest and all that stuff. So these become our base for our further topics. So let's see and understand what these topics are and how to deal with the problems in these topics. So we would be covering fractions, and in fractions we would be covering the definitions, how to compare fractions, and then we'll go to directly to a few applications, which means we'll go directly to do some questions. Then we'll cover percentage. Again we would do definitions. We'll see how to change fractions into percentage and vice versa. We'll understand what is the concept of percentage change, and finally we would look at two-step change in percentage, right? We'll look at a question, and through that we'll look at two-step change in percentage. In ratio and proportion, we'll do definitions and then few problem. We won't be doing the very high-fi vocabulary which is often not used in such competitions. So we'll cut those vocabulary and we'll directly go to applications as far as possible, so that we are able to do questions in our exam. That's our main motive, to do questions in our exam. We are not going to just go into theory as we used to go in our class 8 or class 9. We will go into these topics in as precisely in as precise way as possible, so that we can solve the questions. So without wasting any much time, let's go to fraction. So number xy is fraction, right? X by y is called a fraction. It means what? This means that out of y parts we are representing x parts. Seems confusing, let's not go into it. So for example, we have 2 by 7, which means out of 2 by 7 represent 2 equal parts out of 7 equal parts. Again, this seems confusing. Let's make it more simpler. What do we mean when we see we have half apples? We mean that when we divide apples into two portions, out of those two portions, one is with us, right? So 1 by 2 of those 1 out of those two portions is with us. So fraction is numerator divided by denominator, right? This is the general form of fraction. So if I say that I have 25 apples out of, let me increase the font, $25 apples out of 50 or out of 30. This means what? This means I have 25 by 30 apples, which means we can reduce these. So this means 5 out of 6. So out of every 6 apples, I have 5 apples with me, right? So if we make bunch of 6 apples, right, out of those bunch of 6 apples, 5 apples would always be with me. So this is the meaning of fraction. Now the next topic which comes is comparison of fractions, right? So there can be three cases. Firstly, the denominator is the same, right? So if the denominator is the same, you have to just check the numerators. So the higher the numerator, the greater is the fraction. So in these, 3 by 5 is greater than 2 by 5 is greater than 1 by 5. So this is how we compare when denominators are same. When numerators are same, you check the denominators. The higher the denominator, the smaller is the fraction. So 5 by 11 is smaller than 5 by 9, which is smaller than 5 by 8. This is how we compare when numerators or denominator are the same. But when both are different, what do we do? So let's take an example, 2 by 5 and 31 by 40. Here both numerators and denominators are different. What do? We try to make the denominator same. How do we do that? We take LCM of the denominator. So 5 and 40 LCM would be 40, and we try to just make denominator equal to LCM. So how to make 5 equal to 40? By multiplying 8. So we multiply numerator and denominator by 8, it becomes 16 by 40. So we can compare now 31 by 40 and 16 by 40. 16 by 40 is less than 31 by 40, and hence we can say that we can compare. In this way we can compare. There is one more method which I find in TMH which is very cumbersome. I don't think we need to go into it, because the comparison of fractions is something which you would never get in exam. You would get some kind of application based questions from fractions, not just random questions that compare these fractions and all that stuff. So we don't need to go to that cumbersome method. It won't yield any output to us, so I'm leaving that. If you are interested, you still can go to TMH and look into it. I don't think that it is necessary. So this is how we compare it, right? Now the most important part, the questions, the application which would be there in our paper. So this is our first question. So what I want is you take around 2 to 3 minutes, just go to question, pick up a copy and pen and try and solve it, right? After 2 to 3 minutes I'll do the question with you, right? So the question says a person spends rupees 300 on his for his food, 980 on his clothing, and put the rest of his salary in his bank account, which is 1/8 of the total salary. What is the total monthly salary, right? So you have to find the total monthly salary. How do you do it? Just take around 1 or 2 minutes to do it, and then we'll see how to do it. So I hope most of you have done it correctly, right? Let's see how to do it. It says that he puts 1/8 of the total salary in his bank account, right? So let the total salary be X. He put 1/8 of it in bank account. So he put X by 8 in bank account, right? And remaining he spent on his food and clothing. What is the remaining salary? X minus X by 8. X minus X by 8, which is equal to 7 by 8x. 8x, right? Or 7x by 8 to write it more clearly, which is equal to the salary he spends on food and clothing. So what does he spend on food and clothing? He spent 980 plus 350, right? Which is equal to what? it is 0 3, so it's 1 3 3 0, right? Is it? Yeah, this is the sum. So he spent this much, and this is equal to 7x by 8. So can we find x? Yes, we can. So it becomes x is equal to 1330 multiplied by 8, this whole divided by 7, right? This whole divided by 7. So if you solve it, 1330 is divisible by 7. It would give us 190, right? So 190 into 80. 190 into 8 is what we get from here, right? So it would become 072711520. So this is his total salary. So it was easy an application of fractions, right? So we have given certain fraction, we have to find what fraction he spent. That we did. That's how we do it. This was the most basic question which you might get in your CSAT exam, right? The more probable question is something like this. It says a person spends 3/8 of his salary on food, 1/12 on education, 1/4 on clothing. He is left with 550. Find the total salary. Again, I'll give you around 2 minutes. Just try and solve it and see if you can do it yourself. So I think our 2 minutes are over. I hope that you have done it right, right? So it says that he spends 3/8 of his salary on food, 1/12 on education, and 1/4 on clothes. So if the total salary as a whole is 1, he has spent 3/8 on, and then 1/12, and then 1/4. So he is left with this, right? 1 minus 3/8 minus 1/12 minus 1/4, right? This is what he is left with. We can simplify it. We can 1 minus 3/8 plus 1/12 plus 1/4, right? This is what he is left with, and this is equal to 550, right? So he is left with, we'll take LCM. So LCM would be 8 into 3, 24, right? And then we'll get 1 minus 24 9 plus 2 plus 6, this whole divided by 24. This is the thing which he is left with. So 15, 16, 17 by 24 he has spent, and he is left with 7 by 24, right, which is equal to 550, right? So 7 by 24th part is equal to 550, right? So 7, if the salary is x, 7 by 24, 7x by 24 is equal to 550, and hence we can find x. So that's how we do it. So we take the whole out of whole salary, which is one whole, he has spent this amount, right? So that's how we do it. Now similar question with a slight twist. So the question says a person spends 3/8 of his salary on food, 1/12 of rest part, so just keep a check on rest part, on education, 1/4 of remaining on clothing. So 1/4 of remaining on clothing. He is left with 550. Find his total salary. Again, I'll give you around 2 to 3 minutes, 2 minutes rather, not 3 minutes, to just try and solve it and see if you can do it. Let's go into solution together. So he says 3/8 he spent on his food and 1/12 of the rest on education. So after spending 3/8 he is left with what? He is left with 1 minus 3 by 8, right? Which he spends on his other things, right? So he is left with 5 by 8 part of salary. So if salary is x, he is left with 5x by 8. Out of this he spent 1/12 on education, right? And 1/4 of remaining on clothing. So out of this, so he was, after spending on food, he was left with 5/8, and out of this 5/8 salary he spent 1/12 on education, right? And what would be the remaining? So 5/8, out of 5/8 he spent 1/12 on his education, and he would be left with 1 minus 1 by 12th, right? That he would be left with after spending on education, which would be equal to 5/8 multiplied by 11 by 12. So this is the salary he is left with after spending on food and education. So how do we do it? Firstly, we'll find what salary he is left with after spending on food, right? Now from this residual salary, he spent 1/12 on education. So he is left with what? 1/12 he has spent on education. 1 minus 1 by 12 he is left with, which is 11 by 12. So 58 into 11 by 12 x is what he is left with. Now this, out of this he spends 1/4 on clothing, right? So 58 multiplied by 11 by 12 was what he had before he spent something on clothing. He spent 1/4 on clothing, so he is left with 1 minus 1 by 4, right? Which is equal to 5 by 8 multiplied by 11 by 12 multiplied by 3 by 4. So this is the salary which he is left with, right? And this is equal to 550, right? So so this, if the total salary was x, just put in x here, or let's say total salary was t, so the leftover salary would be 5/8 into 11 into by 12 into 3 by 4, which is equal to 550. So you can find t from this. So this was the difference in first and second question. In first question he was not spending the rest on education from the residual. He is spending 1/12 of the whole. But in second question he was spending 1/12 of rest of the part. So you have to be very clear about what the question is speaking. So this is the basic questions which you might get from fraction topic in your CSAT exam or in any other exam which you might be taking. So these are very basic questions. Just understand that if 3/8 is spent, or if some fraction is spent, the left would be 1 minus that, right? So that would be left, and then we put the question according to the statements and hence solve it. That's how we solve the question on fractions. Now let's go to our next topic, which is percentage. So percent, right? Percent is two words, percent, which means per 100. So 19% means 19th part of 100, which means it can be written as 19 by 100. So what do we mean by represent? So what this means, that we can represent each fraction in percentage terms. Let's say that we have half apple. It means what? We have 50% of apple, right? We all know that. But how do we do it? So we multiply half by 100 to give it 50%. So how to convert a fraction into percentage? It's very simple. So if you have 3 by 4 as fraction, you just multiply it by 100 and you would get 75%. This is how we convert numbers into fraction. Again, let's take, you have 11 by 12 as fraction. You just multiply it by 100 to get whatever you would be getting as percentage, right? So you just assign a percentage sign to it. This is how we convert something into percentage. Now to convert something from percentage into fraction, how do we do it? For example, if it says we have 40%, what does it mean? We have 40 by 100, which means we have 4 by 10, which means we have 2 by 5. So 2 by 5 is equal to 40%, right? So if we have 33.3333%, it means we have 1 by 3, right? Similarly, if we say we have 50%, we do what? We do 50 by 100, which means 1 by 2. So this is how we convert fractions to to percentage and percentage to fraction. I advise you just remember all the fractions from 1 by 2 up till 1 by 15, right? So you just remember the convergence of all these fractions into percentages and vice versa. So just remember that 1 by 3 is equal to 33%, 1 by 4 is equal to 25%, 1 by 5 is equal to 20%, 1 by 6 is equal to 16.66%, 1 by 10 is equal to 10%, and so on. So similarly, you should also remember that 16.66% means what? It means 1 by 6, right? 20% means what? It means 1 by 5. It would come very handy in your questions. You don't need to just calculate these if you remember this. So I just suggest you remember these conversions from fraction to percentage and from percentage to fractions, so that life becomes easy for you. Now let's go to few questions and see what does it mean. Out of 25 marks I got 16 marks, right? What is my percentage? So in fraction, without wasting any more time and giving it to you, let me do it. So he says I got 16 out of 25, right? What is my percentage? So out of 25 parts I was able to achieve 16, right? So my fraction is 16 by 25 and I have to convert it into percentage. So it becomes what? 64%. Very simple. That's how we do it. Now it says I got 40% marks. How many marks did I got if total marks were 25, right? So I got 40%, which means 40% of 100, right? Now the total marks were 25. You have to just multiply it by 25 to get my total marks, right? Which means it would be 10, right? So if you are given 40%, right, it means I achieve 4 by 100, which means I achieve 2 by 5, 2/5 of total marks I was able to achieve. So 2/5 of total marks would be 10, right? Or 40% of total marks I was able to achieve. So 40% of total, right? Which means 40 by 100 into 25 and it would give us 10, right? Now let's go to another concept, which is percentage change, right? Now what is percentage change? I'll explain it with an example, right? For example, let us assume that I used to earn 3000 rupees as my salary. Now my salary increases by 50%. What does it mean, right? This means that my salary initially was 3300. Now it has increased by 50%, right? So it has increased by what? 1500 rupees. So my new salary would be 3000 plus 1500, which means 4500, right? So percentage increase in my salary is, so my new salary is what percent of my old? So my new salary is 4500. My old salary was 3000, which mean, and we have to find the percentage. So it is 150% of my old salary. So my new salary is 150% of my old salary. So the question, if the question has asked find the new salary, we could have done this way. The increase in the salary is 1500. Then we could have added 3000 plus 1500 to get 4500. Or we could have done it in a easier way. So in fractions, my salary has increased by 0.5 or 50 by 100, right, which is equal to 1 by 2, right? By half it has increased initially. So my initial salary was 1 by 2. Now it has become 1 by 2 plus 0.5, right, which means 1.5 times, right? So my new salary becomes 1, which was the initial portion. Now another half has been added to it, so it becomes 1.5 times. My initial salary was 3000. Now it has become 1.5 times of 3000, which means it has become 4500. So this is what we mean by percentage increase. Similarly, if there is a percentage decrease, right, if the question says there is a percentage decrease of 50%, we could have subtracted it, right, and found 0.5% of that salary, which is 1500. So this is how we do increase or decrease, percentage increase or percentage decrease, by changing it into fraction or by finding the absolute value of increase or decrease. So here what we have done is we have found the absolute value of increase and then added that increase to the initial salary to find the final salary. This is also a way out. Or we can do it in terms of fractions and then find the solution. Let's go to some questions. We'll be more clear about it, right? Question 1 says, if length of rectangle increases by 30% and width decreases by 12%, then find the percentage change in area. 2 minutes, please try and solve this question. So this is very basic application on percentage change. I hope that you are able to crack it. Let's see how to do it. So area is what? Area is equal to length into width. Let length is equal to L, width is equal to B, right? It says the length is increased by new length is increased by 30%. So new length would be old length plus old length plus 30% means 0.3 of the old length, which means it is 1.3 length, right? New width is equal to W or B we have taken minus, there is a decrease of 12%, right? Which means 1.2 B has been decreased and we are left with how much? 0.88 W, right? 0.88 B, right? So the new area would be 1.3 into 1.3 L multiplied by 0.88 W, right? This is the new area. We have to calculate this and just solve the question. So new area would become, it would be B, right? So if you know table of 13, 13 into 8 is 104, 13 into 8 is equal to 104, it would become 10804 times LB, right? Just see the points 1 2 3 1 2 3 point. So 108, sorry, 114, right? It would become 1144. Yeah, it would become 1144. So it would become 1.144 LB. So the percentage change is what? Percentage change is new area minus old area divided by old area, and this whole should be multiplied by 100. So this is the percentage change which we were talking about earlier. This is how you find the percentage change. The new thing minus old thing divided by old thing into 100. So here if we subtract this from LB, we would get 0.144, right? LB divided by LB, and this whole should be multiplied by 100, and we would get what? We would get 14.4%. So percentage change is found through this. new minus old divided by old into 100. This is how we find the percentage change. So I hope that you are clear about what is percentage change. We have done it through an example so that it becomes easy to understand it. Now let's go to question 2. A 25% reduction in price of tea fetches 10 kgs more tea at rupees 600. What is the original cost of tea? Slightly perplexing question, so I'll do it for you. It says a percentage decrease of 25% in tea fetches 10 more kgs at rupees 600. So initially we got certain kgs of tea at rupees 600, right? Let the initial price, the original cost of tea is X, right? New cost would be, there has been reduction in of 25%, so it would become 0.75x, right? 0.75x is the new price. Now how much kgs of tea would we do we used to get initially? It would be 600 divided by x initial, and after the decrease how much amount of tea would have been got, divided by 0.75x, right? After reduction. Now this is 10 kgs more than this, right? So we can make an equation out of it, which means, so if you reduce it, this would become 800 by x, right? So 800 by x minus 600 by x would be equal to 10. So can you find x, which is the original cost per kg? So it would become 200 by x is equal to 10, x is equal to 20. This is how we do it, a mix of percentage and linear equations, right? So this is how we do it. Let's go to the third and the last, probably no, the second last problem in percentages. I want you to just pick up your copy and pen and try and do it. The price of coffee increases by 10%. What should be percentage reduction in consumption so that our expenditure remains the same? Just assume few variables and try to solve it. You have 2 minutes for it. I hope that you are able to solve it. So the price of coffee increases by 10%. Let the initial price was P and initial consumption was C, right? So our total expenditure was P into C, right? Now the price has been increased by 10%, which means the price becomes P plus 10% of P, right? 10% of P. which means 1.1. We can directly write it 1.1p, right? 1.1p. So it is equal to 1.1 times p. Now there has to be certain consumption, which so that the product of 1.1p and that consumption should be equal to pc. So pc should be equal to 1.1p multiplied by new consumption. I'll denote it by nc, right? So this p and this p get cancelled, and we get new consumption is equal to consumption divided by 1.1, right? So this is the new consumption. So percentage change would be, there would be a percentage decrease, right? So new consumption minus old consumption, right? This divided by the old consumption, and this whole should be multiplied by 100. So that's the percentage change, which means C divided by 1.1 minus C, right? This whole divided by C, which means what? So this quantity would be negative, which shows that there is a decrease in consumption, right? Negative means there is a decrease in consumption. So don't worry that we are getting a negative sign, because negative would just show that there is decrease in consumption. So if you solve it, it becomes 1.1 minus 1, right? So it would become minus of 0.1 divided by 1.1, this whole multiplied by 100, which is equal to minus of 100 divided by 11. So minus sign shows the decrease in consumption, which is equal to 9 1 by 9, right? 9 1 by 11 is our answer. So this percent is decrease in consumption. So this is our answer. This much should be the decrease in consumption, so that our expenditure remains the same. So the last question, let's go to last question. If I get 25% more marks than you, right? This would drive a very important concept. How much percentage are your marks less than mine, right? So if I get 25% more marks than you, how much percentage are your marks less than me? Just 1.5 2 minutes, try and solve it. I hope that you got it right. So I got 25% more marks than you. We can assume that you got some marks, let's say X, or we can also assume that you got 100 marks, right? Now if you got 100, I got 25% more than you, which means I got 25 more marks than you. If you have 100, I got 125. Now my marks are 125, your marks are 100. Now he is asking how much percentage are your marks less than mine, right? So my marks are 125, your marks are 100. How much marks did you get less? 25. But we have to find how much percentage your marks is less than mine. So the basis of calculating percentage now would be my marks, not yours, because how much percentage your marks are less than mine. So we are comparing my marks, right? So the denominator has to be 125 and not 100. So most of us would take it as 100 and we would calculate 25 as an answer, whereas the denominator has to be 25 because that's what we are comparing, right? How much percentage your marks are less than mine. So there is a comparison from my marks, right? So my marks should be denominator. So this becomes 20%, right? We don't have to always take x. In some cases we can take 100 and solve the question in easy way as well. So this is all about percentages. Let's go to our next topic, which is ratio and proportion. There are lots of definitions in ratio and proportion. If you see your TMH or Arihant, there are all those books, which I think is useless. We don't need those definitions. So let's go to a common definition, which is A ratio B. We put two dots. It implies A divided by B, which means we are comparing two numbers. So what does that mean? It means if we have two numbers in ratio 3 ratio 5, first number can be represented as 3x, the second number would be represented as 5x, which means first number can be 3, second number can be 5, first number can be 6, second number can be 10, 15 or 25 and so on. But when we divide them, right, we write 15 by 25. If we write 15 by 25, we can simplify it into 3 ratio 5. So xx would get, if we divide 3x by 5x, xx would get cancelled and we get 3 ratio 5. So that's what ratio means. Let's directly go to, we don't need rules and all that stuff to do the questions. Let's directly go to few applications. So the first question says the ratio of boys and girls in class is 4 ratio 7. If there are 490 students in class, what is the number of girls? Right? Just try and solve it. Around 1 to 2 minutes you can take to solve this question. Let's solve it together. So the number of boys and girls are in ratio 4 ratio 3. This means that if there are 4x boys, the number of girls are 3x. Total number of students would become 4x plus 3x, which means total is equal to 7x. So can we say that ratio of the number of girls are 3/7, right? 3x by 7x are the number of girls, right? So 3/7 of the total of the class is girls, right? So the total number of students are 490, out of which 3/7 are girls. So how many girls are there? So 3/7 into 490. Can we write it this way? Right? We can, and it becomes 210, right? So this is how we solve it using ratios. We could have also solved it using linear equations. So total number of students are 7x, which means this is equal to 490, which implies x is equal to 70. Now the number of girls are 3x, so the number of girls would be 210. But using ratios we can simplify it. So what we have done is, total number of boys are 4x, total number of girls are 3x, total number of students are this plus this, which is 7x. So what can we represent number of girls as fraction of total class? That is what we have done. So girls are 3 by 7 of total class, right? Because girls are 3x, total are 7x. So out of 7x parts, 3x parts are girls, right? So we can write girls are 3/7 of the total class, and total class strength is 490. So 3/7 of 490 is 210. That's how we solve it using ratios. We can solve it using linear equations, so use any method which is convenient to you. Let's go to question 2, which says the ratio of two numbers is 3:7. If their LCM is 210, find the two numbers. So this is a probable question because it is using our concept of LCM as well as ratios. Just 1 or 2 minutes, try and solve it yourself. So now let's solve it. So 3:7 are two numbers. So first number is 3x, second number is 7x, right? Now their LCM is given to be 210, right? So LCM is equal to 210. Let's write 210 as 3 into 7 into 2 into 5, right? So this is the LCM. How do we find LCM? We find the highest power of each prime number. So 3 comes from here, 7 comes from here, 2 and 5 should come from these x. So these x should contribute 2 and 5, right? So x is equal to 2 into 5. So x is equal to 10. Thus first number is 30 and second number is 70. Very simple question. You have to just see how to find, you have to just know how to find the LCM, and since x has to contribute 2 and 5, it has to be 10. There is no other way out. So the numbers are 30 and 70. Let's go to next question. It says what must be subtracted from each term of the ratio so that it becomes this. Let me solve this. The next question is almost similar, right? So two numbers are in 3:7. So first number is 3x, second number is 7x. What should be subtracted from each term, right? So let's say a is subtracted from each term. This seems to be an incomplete question, right? No, it's complete question. So let's say a is subtracted from first term, and similarly a is subtracted from second term, right? And this becomes 2:5, right? Now just find a in terms of x. So just multiply it, it becomes 15x minus 5a is equal to 14x minus 7a. So it becomes x, sorry, 14x minus 2a here, right? 2a. So x would become equal to 3a. So a is equal to x by 3. I think there is some problem in this question, right? So let's leave it. Let's go to next question, which is, I think, a more complete question. There is some problem in this question for sure. Let's go to next question, which says the ratio of the number of ladies to gents in party is 1:2, but when 2 ladies and 2 gents left, the ratio becomes 1:3. How many people were there in the party? There is some missing information in this question. I'll just check and come back to you later. So how to do it? So the number of ladies and gents are in ratio 1:2. So let the number of ladies be x, number of gents be 2x. Now if 2 ladies and 2 gents leave, their ratio becomes 1:3. So x minus 2 is the number of ladies which are left, and 2x minus 2 are the number of gents which are left, and it becomes 1/3, right? So that's how we find x. That's very easy. And total number of people in the party would be x plus 2x, which is equal to 3x. So you just find x from this and just substitute that and find the total number of people. The last question says a person distributes his pens amongst 4 friends in the ratio 1/3, ratio 1/4, ratio 1/5, ratio 1/6. What is the minimum number of pens he had? In this question, what you have to do is, these ratios are given in fractions. Now you have to just represent these fractions such that we get ratios in integers, right? So how do we do it? We just find LCM of 3, 4, the denominators. We will just find the LCM of denominators. So we find LCM of 3, 4, 5 and 6. So it would be 30, right? 30 would be LCM. Just multiply the whole thing by 30, right? And you would get the correct ratio. So if we multiply it by 30, we would get, the LCM would be 60, not 30. The LCM would be 60. So just multiply whole thing by 60, right, to get the correct ratios. So when we multiply 1/3 by 60, we would get 20, right? Ratio 15, ratio 12, ratio 10, right? So this is the new ratio. How are we doing it, right? Why are we multiplying it by 30? Let's also by LCM. Let's also see the logic. So the number of pens he gave to, there are x number of pens with him, right? So to the first friend he gave 1/3, right? 1/3 of x. To the second friend he gave 1/4 of x. To the third friend he gave 1/5 of x. And to the last friend he gave 1/6 of x, right? So what he gave is total of this, right? 1/3 plus 1/4 plus 1/5 plus 1/6, right? Now if you add it, you have to take the LCM to find the denominator. The LCM would have come out to be 60, right? So you would be multiplying this by 60, this by 60, this by 60 and this by 60 times x, which is equal to 20 plus 15 plus 12 plus 10, this by 60, right, into x, right? So these these are the total number of pens which he should have, right? Now if you add it, it becomes 57x by 60, right? 57x by 60, and this should be equal to some integer, right? Some n, right? So x should be equal to 60 n by 57, right? So this is what he should have, x, such that he can give it to each of his friends. So x should also be integer and n should also be integer. So what is the minimum value of n such that x is integer? It has to be 57. So n is equal to 57. So this is the minimum number of pens which he should have to give to his friends, right? So this is how we do it by algebra. But now we could have easily converted it into 20:15:12:10, right? Now he can give 20 pens, 15, 12 and 10 pens to his friends, or he could have given 40, 30, 24 and 20, or 60, 45, 36 and 30 and so on. So the minimum one is 20, 15, 12 and 10 only, right? When he multiplies it by 1, right? So that's the minimum thing. So you directly add this, don't go into this long elongated stuff. So what you have to do it is, when it is given in fraction, just multiply it by the LCM and you would be able to solve the question. So that's it for now, for this session. I hope that you understand the basic crux of our 3 topics which we covered. You would be able to solve the question. There would be exercise coming on this. I hope that you enjoyed this session. We have not gone into all the theories which is not required for our exam. We have stick to the very exam based point of view of these topics, right? We have done few exercises. I hope that this new way of giving you 1 or 2 minutes to solve the question before actually going and seeing the method works better than the previous method, and hope you enjoyed the video and learned great stuff. All the best for your preparation. Thanks for watching the video.